Now that was a freaking action-packed episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. That is what I'm talking about right there. And oh my god, how do you end me off like that with that cliffhanger? Are you kidding me right now? Come on, you're killing me, Smalls. Getting to see Nanami throw down with Mahito was freaking hype. The dude ain't no joke. I still don't think he's on no level of Gojo, and even Mahito says that when he comes in and he's like, "Oh, it's just you. If it was Gojo, oh, my bad, Goat Joe, I may have been in trouble." Because even the villains respect the goat. Nobody fucks with the goat. But that being said, Nanami is still a freaking beast. And we see that in the episode, he's still hiding some things. But the episode's kind of mixed with scenes of Mahito and Nanami fighting, and Itadori and the assistant chasing down the kid. So we start off the episode with that kid being bullied again, basically. And what I've noticed that they're trying to do is they're kind of sprinkling in some similarities or connections between, because I forget the kid's name, the one that's being bullied all the time, but between him and Itadori. Because if you remember back when Itadori was joining the club, the paranormal club, whatever, it was him and two other people in a small little square room that was being utilized by another group. And just like this kid, the same thing's happening. He's in a group with two other, I'm hesitant to call them his friends, because they kind of leave him behind, even though reluctantly. But yeah, they were utilizing a group room that was belonged to another club that wasn't utilizing the room for their club, so they could talk about movies and stuff. And then, you know, like with Itadori's group, they try to get them to leave, and same thing happens here, except, you know, you don't pull that on Itadori. Itadori will whoop your ass. This kid's the opposite of Itadori. He'll get fucked up, you know, and he does. He gets beat up pretty bad. And it kind of reminds me of OG Yu-Gi-Oh! With those oversized bullies beating the shit out of everybody all the time. Anybody who's been around since, you know, like the late 90s, early 2000s, you know what I'm talking about. And the original Duelist Kingdom arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! The OG shit right there, bro. What's up? Shout out to the good stuff. But I digress. What I find really interesting about the episode, though, aside from the fighting and the connections between Itadori and this kid, is the fact that Mahito really comes across as a deep thought philanthropist, really. Because we see this kid talking to Mahito, and the whole time they're talking, he's talking about how, oh, you know, some quote along the lines of like, the opposite of fondness is indifference or something. And he's like, but, you know, I hope that person went to hell out to deserve. And then Mahito's like, but, you know, that was incorrect. And he's like, no, I know, it was a mistranslation. And then they get into this deep conversation about the soul, and, you know, and then it gets into some real deep personal life issues in Japan about like, hey, you know, we don't say love very often and stuff, and that's why it got mistranslated to love, but over here it changed to fondness over time. And, you know, and it basically, to me, it comes across as then kind of the author or the writer's trying to say like, hey, you know, we love to hate people, but we don't go out of our way to love one another like we should. And that's causing our society, what is this? Kirby, King DDD? But that's causing our society to, you know, kind of become closed off from one another. And, well, I mean, you have population crisis over there, the underpopulation crisis, but it's also overpopulated. You have, you know, like my boy from Neverworld will say, you know, the saying over there is a nail that sticks out still when it gets hammered in. So And that's something that's been getting hit on in the past few chapters of My Hero as well, is this idea of lack of individuality. So I feel like not just this anime, but a lot of anime in general lately has really been trying to hit at a lot of personal problems that people are having over there. People are finally growing a pair and coming out and saying, hey, nah, dog, I'm finally had it with this shit. I have a platform. I'm going to speak my mind about it. And if you don't like it, big whoop. I'm bringing in the dough. What you going to do? Cancel Jujutsu Kaisen? Yeah, okay. Sure thing. Try saying that to Goda. It's like, Goda comes out and starts supporting something. You ain't going to cancel One Piece. You sure as hell ain't going to cancel Jujutsu Kaisen right now. But yeah. And then he gets into this deep conversation with the boy about the soul. And basically it talks about how humans don't have hearts, they have souls. And that his ability or his technique is the ability to touch someone and to alter the shape of their soul. And that's how he's able to turn them into cursed spirits or whatever. Which plays a big role in the fight later on. Excuse me. Because as we see in the fight later when he's explaining this to Nanami, he's able to, and what he shows to the boy, he's able to transform humans into small humans, like little tiny little finger-sized, little kind of like cigars, for lack of a better example, and to giant blobs that look like my sister. Sorry, couldn't resist it. I had to throw that in there. But in all seriousness, he's able to, he makes the comment, he's wanting to see how large he can make humans. So yeah, the dude is like a deep thought philanthropist, but he's also like a fucking sociopathic psycho face. I don't know if you can be a sociopath and a psychopath at the same time. I don't think you can, but the dude's fucking crazy. We'll just leave it at that. He reminds me a lot of Light Yagami, really. With the way he's like detached from reality. And this may not be a fair comparison because obviously Light Yagami is a human that could talk to the Shinigami, and this guy is a straight up cursed spirit from what we know anyways. But yeah, he gives those Light Yagami vibes. It's just because of the way he's detached from everything and the way he just toys with existence. And then he tells the young boys, like, you can kill people if you hate them. Life just goes on. When we die, the soul just goes on. So I can give you that ability. And that plays a role in, because later in the episode, we see the assistant and Itadori cocking a plan to see if the boy can see this spirit that they have in the cage. And he's like, hey, if he can see it, or if he can't see it, just save him. If he can see it, but he can't do nothing, also save him. But if he can see it, and he tries to stop it, we'll need to restrain him, because it means he could be a sorcerer. And then we find out that a little bit more about sorcerer grades, and not a grade, because Itadori's like, I can handle a grade 2. He's like, yeah, a cursed spirit, but a grade 2 sorcerer would be on par with a grade 1 spirit. So that was kind of interesting, because that plays, meaning that a grade 1 would be on, sorcerer would be on a par with a special grade, which is what we find out that Nanami is a grade 1 sorcerer. And he's put in his work against Mahito, which is impressive to say the least, considering he's not on GOAT status. But, one of the teachers, the one that was watching him get his ass beat by those boys at one time, they were accusing him of touching that girl's boobs, and she was like, oh, I heard they died, and weren't you friends with them? They always spent so much time with you. Why aren't you at their funeral? And all this bullshit, just giving them fucking grief, like that jackass teachers from Yu Yu Hakusho when Yusuke got killed. Just being a plain piece of shit, really. And he remembers what Mahito told him about being able just to kill people. And he's about to use a Jujutsu technique, looks like, or a cursed energy technique. And that's when Itadori jumps in and stops him. But it's by coincidence, because he was just trying to stop him, because he notices that he can see the spirit. I don't think he actually noticed that he could use the technique, but that might be something revealed in the next episode. But we'll see. But anyways, he pulls down his pants and chases the teacher away, and then he asks a kid to come with him. He's like, "Oh, you could just drag me away." He's like, "Yeah, but you hate that guy." He's like, "How did you know?" He's like, "It was just a hunch." And it's starting to set the seeds at the similarities between the two, and that Itadori is going to be that light in this guy's life of darkness that's going to kind of pull him away from becoming one of the enemies and, you know, save him. You know, kind of like Naruto. We make the comparison all the time, but it's a lot like Naruto. How what the fuck was his name? Oh God, I forget. The guy that, well, it might be the worst time. I was gonna say the guy that wound up being Naruto's father figure for majority of the series when he was a kid, and kind of saved him from that dark and isolated path. But I would say that Itadori might kind of be like the Jiraiya in a sense to this kid, because the way I'm seeing him play down is he's going to be the one to pull him from that dark path and say, "Hey, there's a better way. Let us show you how to utilize your powers for good. And that eventually people will respect you for what you are." The right people out there. Not everybody, but the people that are decent human beings will respect you for what you are. Because we see him in the intro hanging out with Itadori, so I assume that this is how that's going to go down. I could be completely off base there, but we'll find out. That's just how I see it happening. But on the notion of Jiraiya, we get back to the fight with Nanami and Mahito, and they're throwing down, and that's when, like, I want to go back to something that Nanami said, being a savage. He's like, "I'm getting off at 6 o'clock no matter what." Just not giving a fuck because he hates work. I respect the shit out of this dude. Said it before, I'll say it again. I hate my job too, brother. I feel you 100. I rocks with you hardcore. You straight fam right now, okay? Straight fam. But, yeah. And they're throwing down, and then he's fighting that big blob creature that I said looked like my sister. I had to again, I'm sorry. But he notices that it's crying out and saying that it wants help, and he thinks, flashback to the doctor telling him that once they have been changed like that, they're beyond saving, and that they have to be killed immediately. That's the only way to put them out of their misery. And then Mahito goes on about, "Oh, well, you know, I've been practicing, so I've been able to keep their forms and stuff, but their minds and everything, I've been able to keep them intact," or whatever, something like that. Basically just being, you know, a fucking sociopathic bastard. Which isn't a bad thing, because he is a villain. I mean, it's a terrible thing, but he's a villain, and it makes it a good villain. It's a good villain's a villain you hate. And that's a good way to make you hate somebody. See them be a complete sociopath. But he's like, "No, I try not to get personal feelings involved in work." And then Mahito's like, "Ah, you fucking full of shit, fam. I can see your soul shaking." And then they start throwing hands again. And I totally skipped over one important part. But I guess it'll bleed into this. Earlier in the fight, when Nanami uses attack technique, and he was able to bypass the cursing energy block or whatever to cut the dude's hand off, and he just reformed it. He's like, "Oh, so it's that kind of technique." And then Nanami's like, "What do you mean that kind of technique?" You know, but Mahito doesn't really. That's when he goes into his thing about the soul and all this jazz. But when he goes and he attacks Nanami this time, he's trying to transform him. He gets him off guard, and Nanami is able to protect his soul somehow. It's not really explained what he did, just that he somehow used curse energy to block it. I think Chibi mentioned that, you know, it's using a battle system similar to that of Nin from Hunter x Hunter, and I think this could be another of those similarities. As we know, the author is inspired heavily by Yoshihiro Togashi, and so that would make perfect sense to take utilizations from Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho and utilize them in the manga. and now the anime. But yeah, used it to protect his soul. He said, but if I hit you 2 or 3 more times, you'll be mine. And he's like, you wonder how my speed changed? And he looked down and he's all transformed like to half horse. And at this point, he tells us that he can also change his own soul, and that's how he was able to heal his hand back earlier too. He can shape the body of his own soul as well and alter it to different forms. So the dude is pretty flippin' OP. We knew he was going to be powerful, but damn. And then he kicks Nanami out and sits there and he starts talking. Blah, 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 blah. You know, just typical monologuing about how he's about to win. Then, like a savage, Nanami pulls out his watch. It's 6 o'clock and he's like, damn it. Now I'm going in overtime. And then he loosens his tie and wraps it around, and Mahito makes the mention that, oh shit, his curse energy is rising. And he's like, alright, now it's time to get serious. And then that's where the episode ends. I'm like, oh, come on, you can't end me there. We're about to see what Nanami could really do. Like, and not to mention, we ain't gonna see Nanami activate domain expansion. You're not gonna tell me he does it. No, domain expansion. Dude, and this Nanami dude, I already liked him, and I'm really starting to like this dude now. But what I want to hit at, I said on the vibes of Jiraiya, this so reminded me of the fight between Jiraiya and Pain. And not to the same degree that it's like, you know, as epic, or that it has as much emotional impact, or any of that jazz. It's not even in the same stratosphere as that legendary fight. That's one of the top 10 anime fights of all time. Period. But just the way the two characters are interacting and what one represents, you know, this deep philosophy of someone that has been done wrong at some point in their life, I'm guaranteeing you that's probably what Mahito has, because of the way we talked to him, or he's talked about how they're real humans and all this stuff. Something along the lines, and how he reaches out to this kid who is going through a rough time. Something in his life happened that has made him this way. Don't know what it is, but somehow he's turned into this dark path. So, to me, that kind of represents Pain. And then you have the badass over here, who is, in this particular instance, the Jiraiya. And, so yeah. I know I say more often than not that Gojo is more like Jiraiya and Kakashi mixed. But, in this particular instance, I have to say Nanami is kind of like the Jiraiya figure. But it's not just that he represents, the other guy is kind of like a Pain-esque character with his deep philosophy and fucked up motives. But also, like where the episode ended, where they were fighting in that sewer, it looked a lot like where Pain was standing at the top of the sewer exit where Jiraiya, right before Jiraiya got pinned down by the other Pains and killed. It looked a lot like that scene. I don't know if that's like just inspiration, kind of like an homage, say, hey, I want to pay homage to that legendary battle, or if it's some foreshadowing as like, hey, Nanami is about to throw down and get serious, but at the end, Mahito is going to be one that's going to be victorious and could kill Nanami. I don't know. Either way, I thought it was freaking epic. I loved the episode. It was full of freaking action. It looked wonderful, as usual. Mappa's always on the A game. Fire everywhere. Just saying. What do you think? Do you think Itadori is going to be the guy that is going to pull this kid out of the dark path he's on? Do you think something similar happened to Mahito that took him down the path that he's at? Because do you think he's kind of like a representation of Pain, really? From Naruto, in a way? With his tragic backstory? That'll make more sense, obviously, when we actually get Mahito's backstory. But right now, it's theory time. What do you think? And how powerful do you think Nanami really is? Do you think he's got a snowball's chance in hell, or is he just is he gonna get snuffed out in the end? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you in the next one.